Good evening. Welcome to our Institute of Global Professional Free webinar. Thank you all for joining with us. Stay with us till the end. My lovely audience, I am your host from the evening. My name is Badhun Das. I am from Bangladesh. Dear audience, I am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. I feel honored and privileged to host this webinar. It's my delight to welcome you all to our Institute of Global Professional Free webinar. Thank you all for joining with us. Today is this marvelous evening and it's my humble request and pleasure to all of you stay with us till the end. Institute of Global Professional serve student and communicate resource providing holistic social work and education for create a competent generation. IGP is a leading on online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. Institute of Global Professional is an educational institute provide social work with global recognition. We organize our webinar training offline online courses by best and trained speaker coach from all over the world. Our mission is to empower people. We have successfully completed 1061 webinars. Let's introduce our speaker, Ma'am Maria. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me? Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, sound good. Continue for a second. Can you hear me?
Unmute.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, okay. Thank you. Because you're not unmute. You unmuted me.
Okay, ma'am. How are you, ma'am?
Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Please say something about yourself and then you can start your presentation.
Well, I'm from Manila, Philippines, and I've been working as a SPED educator, and I ran my own center in the Philippines. And it's such a pleasure. And today I'm going to share with you some a behavior management, the common mistakes that we commit in our classrooms. And can I start now?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay, can I proceed now with the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Of
Okay,
course.
thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. And let me share my screen to you. Thank you very much. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, good evening and good afternoon to all of you. It's such a pleasure to be invited today. And today I want to share with you common mistakes in classroom management and what to do instead. One of our responsibilities as teachers is to help our students learn. It is difficult for learning to take place in chaotic environment, right? Subsequently, we are challenged daily to create and maintain a positive classroom atmosphere conducive to learning. On any given day, this can be quite a challenge. In our attempt to face this challenge, we find ourselves making common classroom behavioral mistakes. Today, I'm going to present or to share with you some of these common mistakes, followed by some suggestions as to what to do instead. The mistakes presented are committed frequently at any grade level and in many learning environments, and each suggestion is relatively easy to implement and useful for many learners. First, let's define what classroom management is. Classroom management refers to all things that the teacher does to organize students, space, time, and material so that instruction in content and student learning can take place. In all that you communicate, no matter how insignificant it may seem, it contributes to our status as teachers and our ability to manage our classrooms. Keynote states that classroom management, like surgery, it requires precision. No random cuts, no rambling comments. Above all, a teacher demonstrates self-discipline, good manners, no tantrums, no insults, no blistering language. Our management plan is never sadistic, and we live by the law of compassion even when challenged by children to defy it. We believe as teachers we have considerable influence over our students' behaviors, and misbehaviors are learned behaviors and they happen for a reason. It is our job to determine the reasons and to teach them the appropriate behaviors to replace these inappropriate or misbehaviors. We believe that prevention is the most effective form of behavior management. The most effective way to eliminate misbehavior is to prevent them from happening or escalating from the beginning. Using a proactive approach allows us to focus on uh sorry, I guess I'm sharing my, excuse me. Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm gonna reshare it, okay? Sorry po. Can you see it now? Hello? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry po. Okay, going back, Ginnett says that a good classroom management requires surgery. It does not. It requires no random cuts, no rambling comments. Above all, a teachers demonstrate self-discipline, good manners, no tantrum, no insult, no blistering language. And our plan is never sadistic, and we live by the law of compassion. Now, let us first see the common mistakes that we need to do and what are the things that we need to do in our classroom management. First is defining the behavior by how it looks. When attempting to change a behavior, we often describe it by only how it looks, like calling out, hitting, getting out of seat. These are the common behaviors that we try to describe. We often describe it by how it looks. We become in Filipino, it is our presumption. We presume that the child is misbehaving because of this particular behavior, hitting the child or getting out of seat. Defining misbehavior by how it looks only provides us with an incomplete picture of the behavior. It tells us nothing about why it happened, and it doesn't help us much in our behavior change effort. For example, a student who is off task. Off task is a common classroom behavior. If two of our students are off task regularly, they or may not be off task for the same reason. If they are off task for different reason, our approaches should be different in terms of their behavior. If both children they are off task, it doesn't mean that's the reason for their off task behavior are the same. Actually, a strategy that will eliminate the off task behavior of one student might worsen the off task behavior of the other one. Defining misbehavior by how it looks tell us nothing about why it happened, and often it does not help us in our behavior change effort. Just because two behaviors look the same doesn't mean that they are the same. And instead, what do we need to do instead? Define misbehavior by its function. To develop a better strategy to misbehavior is we need to ask ourselves, what was the function of this misbehavior? Or we could simply ask, what did the student gain from the misbehavior? Though our students' misbehavior appear to occur for no reason, they do serve a purpose. It has a purpose. Otherwise, if it will not happen, if it has no purpose at all. Although some behavior problems are result of organic issues. When you say organic, they are hyperactivity. And most misbehaviors or inappropriate behaviors, they function for a reason. For example, the two students mentioned earlier, the two students who are off task. One student might be off task to get our attention, whereas the other might be off task because the assignment might be too difficult. And how we're gonna approach that particular situation? If the assignment is too difficult, then maybe we could give him a easier problem or activity to solve and give the child clear direction or instructions that might eliminate the off-task behavior. Clearly, these misbehaviors serve dissimilar functions and need to be solved differently. We cannot solve two problems with the same strategy. We have to differ it. We have to use different strategies even though the behavior is off task, but the purpose or the reason behind it are different, and we have to approach it differently. The next one is asking, why did you do that? Although we are always tempted to ask or to the idea of asking our students, why did you do that? First, many times our students will not know the reasons why they misbehave or why they engage into misbehavior or in a certain behavior. Second, if we keep on asking why did you do that, we might often not like their answers. Let's say for a child, if a child is playing with his pen and tapping it on his table during our lesson, we might ask him, why are you doing that? Why are you tapping your pen? Why are you not, or is just scribbling and is not working on his task or with his activity? He might answer, because the lesson is so boring. Well, as a teachers, do you think we we will like that, or we definitely we would like his answer? We won't be pleased by his response saying that the lesson is boring. So instead, what should we need to do? Assess the behavior directly to determine its function. The function of a behavior is the purpose it serves the student. What the student gets from it. As mentioned earlier, most misbehaviors serve a getting or an avoiding function. They're just going to get our attention or avoiding some task. To determine a behavior's function, we need to study what is happening in the classroom before and after it happened. This information gathering is called a functional assessment. If you are familiar with the ABC chart or ABC model, which is the antecedent behavior consequent chart, it could be used as a tool in doing a functional assessment as a functional assessment tool. An ABC chart has three columns in which we could record the behavior and what happened before and after it happened. The standard way to make this chart is to separate in a sheet of paper, make a three columns. Yeah, the first column, the antecedent, the second column is the behavior, the third column is the consequence. When the behavior happened, it is written down in the behavior column, the middle one. Then the teacher records what happened immediately before the behavior happened, which is the antecedent or what the triggerer, and then write the behavior and then the antecedent column. And after it happened, record it in the consequence column. To make the data collection simpler, a modified ABC chart can be used that contains several predetermined categories of a teacher or peer antecedent behavior or student responses on and consequential events. According to Alberto and Trotman in 2003, a functional assessment gives us a more complete picture of the misbehavior by including the environmental antecedents and consequences in its description. Once we determine the functions of the behavior, why it occurs, we need to teach and reinforce an appropriate replacement behavior that serve the same function as the misbehavior. Let's say, or let me give you an example. If a functional assessment reveals that Olivia teases her friends during snack time or recess time because it is the only time that she gets their attention. So what we need to do is to teach Olivia appropriate method to get peer attention, such as sharing or asking to be invited to join in a game. Now, a functional assessment may reveal that changes in our teaching method are needed. Another example is that if Ricardo tends to act out during math class, a change in how or what we are teaching might be needed to modified. The problem might be that Ricardo is missing some prerequisite skills in math. He's not ready for the lesson that we're teaching because he was not able to master the skills. And then when we're trying to present or to teach him this particular math activity, that he cannot perform it because he's not ready. So we need to review if he already mastered the prerequisite skills in certain math skills or in a certain skills, and we could reduce the frustration and acting out and maximize the learning of Ricardo. Yeah, many times an ABC analysis is all that is needed to determine the function of in a functional assessment. For complex behavior, yeah, we need to seek an ABA practitioner for us to be able to develop a functional assessment and have an BIP or behavioral intervention plan. The next problem is or mistake that we commit in our classroom is when approach isn't working, try harder. When a management approach isn't working, our first tendency is to try harder. If we cannot do this particular task, we keep on pushing the child. Okay, keep going, keep on doing this because I know that you could make it. Even we know that the child is having some frustration because he can no longer answer it or cannot perform the task anymore. The problem is that we most often try harder negatively. We make loud disapproving statement. You keep on saying that's wrong. You're not doing it correctly. Do it again. Do it again. And we increase negative consequences. Oh, you're not going to. You cannot have your happy face or cannot have your snack time on. You cannot have your snack on time. Or we could remove some privileges. You cannot join your friends during activity time or during circle time or yeah. We're doing this. This idea does not teach any appropriate behavior. Instead, our increased negative result, our increased negativity results in impaired student-teacher relationships, and it could increase the likelihood of our students feeling defeated because it's already frustrating to solve a certain problem or to read a story or to comprehend or to do spelling math, and then we keep on pushing and telling him to keep trying, and he feels not motivated. He feels more defeated rather than uplifted and want to increase or develop more of his skills. And instead, what we need to do is try another way. If one approach is not working, instead of trying harder, we should try another way. What are some of these examples? Some examples include verbal redirecting, proximity control, reinforcing incompatible behaviors, changing academic tasks, and improving additional cues or prompts. We have to assist. We have to give a child some assistance if the child is finding it difficult or having some difficulties in performing his task. And these approaches are more effective, simpler to use, and create a more positive classroom climate rather than trying harder. Like if two of our students, let's say Danny and Zara, are talking in class, instead of reprimanding them, we could talk in, we could walk in or go near them, which we call use proximity control, make eye contact, and provide the nonverbal cues and to get on task. By doing such, by just approaching them and giving some cues, we're not going to embarrass them because they're talking, or they're not participating. We just have to stop them. And then by doing such, we're developing or we're establishing some respect from our students, rather than calling them out and reprimanding them, telling them you quiet down because you're so noisy, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yeah, it will not help the kids or the students to be more responsive if they feel that they being feel embarrassed. Instead of increasing the negative consequences, we should increase the frequency of contingency praises for appropriate students' behavior. Always remember that teacher praise is easy to deliver and is more of the most powerful tools available for us. In fact, praise or some types of reinforcement should be included in all approaches in terms of behavioral change. I'm going to give you an example. When Jam is off task, instead of reprimanding them, we should find another student who is on task and doing his activity, and praise that particular student for Jam to imitate, for Jam to see or to know that this particular child is doing his task. This will reinforce the on-task student and could have added benefit of knowing, of notifying Jam of his misbehavior without just singling him out, by calling him instead of, we could say, look at Anthony. He's quiet. He's working on his task. Yeah, then praise Anthony, for Anthony to be able for Jam to see that, oh, if I'm going to do my task, I'll get my praise too. I'll be praised also. When using praise, we should remember that it's effective when it is provided immediately. Do not praise a child for long time na. If the child did something good today, then you have to give thumbs up or high five or say good job. Yeah, and that will be very good. If and using praise after or for a long period of time, it won't be effective anymore. When we find ourselves making more stop than start requests, we need to reverse our behaviors. For example, instead of asking Sam to stop talking, ask him to please do your assignment. When he complies, or please do your task. When he complies, then provide him praise. Good. Now, very good. Thank you for sitting down. Thank you for quieting down. Thank you for working on your task, and very good. You're working on it. You're going to praise the child, especially if he's working on his task well. Another mistake is validating the principles of good classroom rules. We all know that classroom rules play a vital role in effective classroom management. However, if rules alone exert little influence over students' behavior, yeah, too often rules are posted at the beginning of the year. We have to review it once and then attended to it minimally. When this is the case, they have little to no effect on students' behavior. If it is not being done, if it is not being followed, and it won't work. Yeah, we love to use rules, classroom rules. These are the rules. This we have to do. We have to do this. We have to do that. But if it is not being enforced, then it is not effective. It won't be effective. Then what should we do instead? We should need to follow a guidelines for classroom rules. We need to develop at least 4 to 6 measurable rules, observable, positive classroom rules, and include students in the rule development. In doing such, classroom rules should be simple, specific, and clear, and measurable. The degree of rules simplify It depends on the age and ability levels of our students. For younger students, we might want to include pictures in the rule posters. We call it as visual cues or routines. Rules are specific when they are clear and if they are clear and direct. For example, the rule: bring books, paper, and pencils to class. It is much easier than the rule, be ready to learn. It's nicer, di ba? If you're going to tell to one of the rules posted, bring your books, paper, and pencils in class, rather than, or bring out your books, your paper and pencil, rather than, okay, sit down and get ready to learn. Clearly stated rules are easily observed and measured. The classroom rule should be posted. Let's post it and to remind us, or to remind the students what they need to do. In our field in special education, we call it as routine. Our rules are routine, what they should do. We use visual cues, visual schedules for them to remember what to do next. Another characteristics of effective rules is that they are positively stated, like the do rules. Do rules provide information as to how to behave and set occasions for teacher to praise, like raise your hands for permission to talk, or you can ask permission if you want to go to the bathroom, ask permission if you want to get something. Yeah. Now, conversely, negatively stated rules, or the don't rules, tell the student what not to do, and it encourages us to attend to student as rule breaking. An example of don't rules: don't call out, don't shout, don't run, don't the don'ts. Yeah, if you have a lot of don'ts, then it's no longer a rule, because you're giving too much don't, rather than teaching them na teaching them the proper manner, or the proper way of, please ask permission, please raise your hand, please don't grab. You're going to give them that particular phrase, rather than don't grab, no grabbing, no running. Well, that is negative comment. Yeah. Then another one is teach the rules and sub rules directly. Some teachers develop sub rules that correspond with each of the major classroom rules. For example, a classroom rule might be follow classroom expectations. One of the corresponding sub rules for the line behavior follow classroom rule could be keep your hands and feet to yourself. Diba? Now, once the sub rules are set, we need to teach or role play appropriate behaviors by having mini lessons. Now, by demonstrating, some teachers continue to review the several times a day. They have to practice it. How to put your hands on your side, keep your hands and feet to yourself. You have to rehearse it, you have to practice it, so that children will know that they need to keep their hands and feet to themselves. And you could do it several times a day until they master, until they learn, or they know that it's much better that keeping their hands and feet to themselves will is a very good behavior. Some teachers continue to review sub rules prior to each activity, or periodically, depending on their students' needs. A simple and quick way to review is to have our a student volunteer to read the posted sub rules prior to each major activities. We have to ask somebody, okay, what is the rule, or what are the things that we have to you need to do for the day? What are the things that we have to remember before doing the task? We have to ask a volunteer for our students to remember all those rules or sub rules. Another thing is post the rules and review them frequently. We often need reminders to praise our students throughout the day. As teachers, one way is to place a sign in the back of our classroom, or anywhere that we could be reminded that we need to praise our students. We have to tell them, even a small good thing that the child did, we have to praise him. We have to just simple good job, nice work, and a tap or a clap or high five or thumbs up will help the child to 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 he feels appreciated with even a little thumbs up or a smiley or a stomp, a smiley stomp that will help him realize that, oh, I did something good today. So it will be very good to uplift his to motivate him to continue with his good behavior. Another thing is to be sure to carry out the consequences for rule compliance and non-compliance. We consistently need to carry out the consequences and and the non-compliance of our classroom rules, as they will mean very little if our students follow the rules for group work at a during reading time. We should verbally praise and provide additional reinforcement as needed, like giving them stickers, providing extra playtime or activity time. On the other hand, if the classroom consequences for fighting with other child or hitting another child, well, we could give him the consequences of his action by losing recess time or privileges or something that he will realize that hitting is not good. We need to make clear that consequences for not for following and not following the rules. They need to learn the consequences, positive and negative, using the positive and negative consequences as part of our classroom rules. Another thing is treating all misbehaviors as want do's. When students misbehave, it often seems as though it is exclusively a motivational issues. At time, it is true. On those occasions, we need to increase the reinforcement for appropriate behavior and eliminate it for inappropriate behavior. However, several misbehaviors are due to lack of appropriate skills, not lack of motivations. And we call it as the can't do's behavior. So, what should we do, and what is the can't do's behaviors? Let's treat the behaviors as can't do's. The can't do's behavior occur because of lack of skills, not lack of motivation of or reinforcement. We should deal with the can't do misbehavior the same way that we deal with our students' mistakes. When students make repeated errors during our lessons, we make changes in how we teach. What we do. If they keep on repeating mistakes, di ba, we provide more examples and allow students to practice more for them to be able to master the skills or develop or improve their reading activity, then and provide more intensive instructions. We give them more examples, we ask them to practice more for them to be able to perfect it or to make it better. Our improved lesson make us more proactive teachers, decreasing the likelihood of chronic academic errors being repeated. We use this approach. We call this approach as pre-correction. If we keep on correcting, we call it as pre-correction. In contrast, when students chronically misbehave, we are more inclined to remain reactive. We provide only correction procedures by simply telling that they are misbehaving, and increase the intensity of our negative consequences by removing their privileges. And we could be more effective in solving um, difficult behaviors or misbehavior if we move into the pre-corrective mode. When we say pre-corrective mode, we teach them proper behavior. What are the proper behaviors? Do it? Let's say if the child is having some trouble, or his behavior is calling out. Now, what we have to do is we have to teach him that you have to wait until you are being called. You have to learn how to raise your hands if you want to be called, rather than calling and always saying, teacher, 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 I want this. You're getting, the child is getting your attention. You have to teach the child, okay, yeah, if you want me to call you, learn to raise your hands. And how do you raise your hand? And then maybe, as stated earlier, you need to model. You have to the child needs to know how to raise his hand and how to do it. You have to model it to him for him to be able to perform it. Maybe raising his hand is not that easy for him, and by teaching him how to raise his hand to get your attention is a better way for him to be able to get your attention, rather than calling out your name, calling out teacher, teacher, getting your attention. Another one is, another problem number 6 is lack of planning for transition time. Always remember, transition time uh is is our in our teaching day. Planning for transition gets often overlooked. We overlook this particular transition mode. A significant amount of class time is spent from transitioning from one subject to another, or from one place to another. When we talk about transition, is transferring from one activity to another activity, from one subject to another subject. If we're transferring to another classroom, it's, we call it, or we consider as transitioning. Now, without proper planning, transitioning could be one of the most frustrating time of the day for teachers. This time seems to invite problem behaviors for our students. If we have, if our transition, if we fail to have a good transition time, we're inviting our students to get into behavior problems. Why so? Because at times students are not ready for the transition. In special education, in our class, what we do is that we give them ample time. We have visual schedules. Let's say, yeah, their time is, reading time is between 8 to 8:30. And then they know that before 8:30, 5 minutes prior to 8:30, they should be ready for to pack away their reading notebook, because at 8:30 they're going to start for another lesson. So, or we're going to give them some sort of reminder. Okay, you only have 5 minutes to finish your task. After 5 minutes, after that, you're going to have your snack time. It's not because that, okay, finish, you're going to have your snack time. They're going to engage into misbehavior, because they feel, oh, I'm not ready yet. Why are you telling me that I'm going to have snack time? No, we have to prepare them. Most of our students are cue time for them. Okay, pack away. You need to pack away. We're going to have our snack time. If we're going, so if they, okay, pack away toys, prepare for snack time, so they know already what to do. Yeah, because inconsistent expectation causes transition problems. We're going to have problems if they're not ready, if they're not going to give them some cues that you have to stop with what you're doing, or you have to transfer or to start with another activity. Because we're often transitioning with our students, our attention is diverted away from them, making transition longer and inviting even more misbehavior. What I mean by this is that the students are already ready for transition. They're ready for snack time, but the teacher is not yet ready for that particular activity, because she forgot that, oh, it's time na pala for you to have your snack time, and that the teacher is still doing something, checking on other things, rather than minding that that particular time is already for them to have their snack, and yet she forgot, and the children started to have some misbehavior. They're becoming noisy, they're becoming unattentive, they becoming uneasy, because the teacher herself was not able to transition properly. She was not able to transition. She forgot the time. Okay. What do we need to do instead? Appropriate plan for transition. A successful transitioning requires just as much as planning effective instructions. But the time is worth it. When transitions are done quickly and quietly, it allows lessons to start on time and can set a positive tone for the lessons. Whereas unplanned or poorly done instructions can waste valuable time and cause negative student teacher interaction. When it comes to transition problems, it can be reduced significantly by following a few practical procedures. First is it is best for the transitions are expected transition expectations are should be consistent. What I've said kanina that you have to use some sort of routine or visual cues for the child, for the students to know that it's time for me to do now my math activity. I'm done with my English activity because it's already the time are already break down in different times. So like 8 to 8:30 reading time, 8:30 to 9 o'clock, math time, 9 to 9:30 snack time. So it's already the child already may expectation na yung mga bata what to do or what will happen in that particular span of time or in that particular time. So it will be very easy for them that they already expected what will do next. Consistency begins by developing rules. Like as I've said earlier, these rules are like quietly put your materials. Yeah, then keep your hands and feet to yourself. Yeah, because we're going to have our snack. Yeah, your the rules set in your classroom, which was stated earlier or mentioned earlier, could be used as part of your transition time. Once we have developed our transition rules, we should teach them to our students. We can do this by having brief lessons at the beginning of the school year, how or we have to follow frequent reviews. It is a good idea that, as I've said, make sure that your transition rules have a would be part of your guidelines or school rules. Now you have to give them that also or include them in your activities or in your rules so that they will be able to expect or to know what will happen next. So you could avoid some sort of misbehaviors and you could avoid this these behaviors in your classrooms. Another thing that we have to another mistake is ignoring all or nothing at all. Ignoring could be a valuable tool in reducing misbehaviors when used with behavior building strategies. One of the management strategies or behavior management strategies that what we call is the extinction. We try to ignore the behavior, especially if the behavior does not affect or does not harm or do anything bad towards a child or towards the other people, ignoring it. However, it's difficult for many of us to determine which behaviors to ignore and which behavior need to give attention to. We tend to take ignoring to extremes by ignoring almost all misbehaviors or not ignoring them at all. Neither approach is effective. Okay, what should we do instead? We need to ignore the behavior wisely. First, not all behaviors need to be ignored. We should only ignore the behaviors motivated by our attention. Let me give you an example. If Larry is playing his favorite computer game instead of doing math, ignoring him will not work because his behavior is not motivated by our attention. His motivation is playing on the computer or gadgets. However, when behavior are attention seeking, we need to ignore them continuously every single time. As soon as we begin to ignore our students' misbehavior, our student will seek it everywhere, most likely from his peers. It can be difficult for peers to ignore misbehaviors. Therefore, ignoring misbehaviors should be a classroom rule that receive powerful reinforcement. And we need to plan for the misbehavior to, if they get worse or when they happen more intensely before it improves. When this happens, we must continue to ignore it. Ignoring must be used in combination with behavior building strategies such as reinforcement, or we have to reinforce the positive or appropriate behaviors, teaching replacement behaviors, and reinforcing peers. Ignoring teaches students what not to do, but does not teach them what they should do instead. I'll repeat. Ignoring teaches students what not to do, but it does not teach them what they should do instead. For example, uh, uh, Monica is a preschool student. She has a tendency to uh, tag and or tagging or yelling to get our attention. In this scenario, we should ignore this behavior like shouting, screaming. In addition, we need to teach the child appropriate way to gain our attention. How do we need to teach her to gain our attention? By teaching her to raise her hands, or saying excuse me rather than yelling to get our attention. And we praise her each time she used this replacement behavior. We're replacing the negative behavior with positive behavior by teaching her how to ask permission or saying excuse me or raising her hand whenever she needs to get our attention. To add to the effectiveness, we should also praise other kids who in her presence, who appropriately, or who act positively or appropriate behavior, who seeks our attention. If another kid will raise her hand, and then maybe we could say to Monica, look at Annabelle, she's raising her hand, she's not shouting, she's not yelling, she said excuse me teacher, or she's raising her hand to get my attention. But yelling will not, is not good. Just raise your hand if you want to get my attention. There are also occasions that when ignoring is inappropriate. This includes when there are concerns for observational learning of misbehaviors, when our students are engaging in extreme dangerous behaviors. Now, we cannot ignore the behavior if the child is becoming becoming he's having some sort of danger to others or to himself, like headbanging, like hitting other kids, or hitting other teachers, or hurting himself. So we cannot ignore it anymore. We have to ask the help of some professionals to help us to avoid or to prevent that particular behavior. And we cannot ignore that. If it is extreme, or it's very negatively affecting the child, and it could harm other children and even the teachers and himself as well. And the number 8 is overuse and misuse of timeout. Maybe everybody, especially the teachers, are very much aware about timeout. Timeout occurs when a teacher removes a student from a specific time from a chance to receive reinforcement. There are several timeout strategies ranging from brief in class ignoring to placing a student in a secluded area. We are tempted to overuse timeout because it is a result to stop or from a problematic student. At times we misuse timeout by by being by using it as being reinforcing. We reinforce the misbehavior while using the procedure. There are times that when we overuse and misuse uh, timeout, timeout is no longer being punitive to the child, but is becoming more rewarding. And what we should do instead, Follow the principles of effective timeout. Timeout can be effective tool, but only when used appropriately, according to Turner and Watson in 1999. First, we must remember that timeout is not a place. Kasi when we use timeout, there is a timeout corner. We allow the child to face the wall, or we ask the child to stay in a corner, in a bin bag, or somewhere that the child feels uncomfortable. That is the timeout corner. Instead, it is a process whereby all opportunities to get reinforced are withdrawn. Meaning that if you're not going to give him anything, if you place a child in a timeout corner, don't give him any activity. That means you're going to isolate him and not allow him to play or to have any activity. But make sure that when you use timeout, it is it he feels that it is more a negative consequences for his negative behavior rather than using timeout as very reinforcing to the child. If we're going to use timeout, let's also assess and see if timeout is becoming he's learning something from his misbehavior, or he's just engaging to misbehavior for him to be placed in a timeout corner, because timeout corner is becoming rewarding for him rather than punitive for him. Now we have to understand that also. Another thing is that the next mistake is inconsistent expectations and consequences. Students are often given mixed signals as to what is expected and what will happen if they do not meet our expectations. Inconsistent expectation causes student confusion and frustration. Inconsistent consequences means maintains misbehavior and even cause the behavior to occur more frequently or intensely. In addition, we find ourselves constantly reminding and sometimes becoming threatening, which in turn enhances our frustration as teachers because we keep on giving them the these particular consequences, we our inconsistent expectations, our being inconsistent with our discipline or classroom management, and it gives the children wrong signal. If if I do this, the teacher is responding this way. If I do this, the teacher is responding that way. So we need to be consistent with our own consequences and with our own expectations. What should we need to do? We need to have our clear expectations that are reinforced and that are enforced and reinforced consistently. Expectations are clear when they're identifiable and consistent. We need to review the expectations and rehearsing rules that help build routines and minimize the potentials for problems. We have to teach them also what are the things that we expect of the child. We have to tell him these are the things, like the classroom rules. These are the things that I expect of you to do. These are the things that you're expected to happen. So we have to be clear, and we need to be consistent with our classroom rules, so for them to be able to understand and avoid any inconsistencies. Because if we change or we say na, okay, don't do that because you did it already. Yeah. So the child would engage in a negative behavior because he will think that, oh, it's okay to misbehave because I still get what I want. So you're becoming inconsistent. Expectations are pointless if they're not backed up with reinforcement for compliance and reasonable negative consequences for non-compliance. As I have said earlier, if the child complies, or the child behaves, or the child did something good, then the child is reinforced positively. If the child engaged into negative behavior, the child is reinforced negatively. When you say reinforced negatively, you're going to remove privileges from him. Not exactly don't do that, but sometimes he cannot join the group playing. He cannot play with the blocks. He cannot join the class during circle time because he hit somebody. So he has to learn that hitting is not good. If you hit, you cannot join the activity. if you do not do your if you do not finish your activity on time, and you keep on playing with your pen, tapping it on the table, then you have to face the consequences of your action without by not joining, which is you have to be very consistent with that, and you have to establish that particular consequences, use be it logical consequences or natural consequences. They have to learn to face the consequences of their action by teaching them and being consistent with our own expectations and with our own with the consequences that we provide our students. Another thing, another mistake is by viewing ourselves as the only classroom managers. Managing classroom behavior may be more challenging today than ever before. We have to admit that. That our students are more challenging than before. Way back when I started teaching uh, uh, 20, 30 years ago, children are very behaved, well disciplined. Even those children with autism or children with special needs, they evolve. They evolve also in terms of disciplining them. Yeah, it's not easy to discipline children nowadays. And we have to be very good in terms of our classroom management style and behavior management style. Many teachers, especially in public schools, face larger class size. More students who become more stressful. They have they have chaotic homes and increased diversities in students' abilities and their ability to learn. Yet many of us are determined to manage our classroom behaviors by ourselves, as if we're the only one who knows the behavior of our students. After all, collaborating with other teachers or other professionals would take time and energy to build relationship or rapport, and it could come to a consensus on behavior change priorities and strategies, because one of the challenges of collaborating with our other professionals, and that we feel that her idea is not the same as our idea. Her way of disciplining is not the same, or the strategies that we have is different from the strategies of the other profession or other teachers. Yeah. Although doing it alone may seem like a good idea in a short run, but in the long run, we are more likely to feel burnout and we lose our effectiveness. What we need to do instead, rather than just being or viewing ourselves as the lone ranger, as the only classroom manager, yeah, we need to include also our students, the parents, and others like the professionals in management efforts. There are many who could assist us in our behavior management efforts, even our students, like in our class. My older kids help me with our younger kids. Yeah. Uh my older kids who are independent already, they could assist me in managing younger kids during snack time, during activity time. They will act as their assistant. They will teach them, they will guide them, they will help them and teach them how to pack away their toys, how to throw their trash in the trash can. And at times in behavior management also, my older kids, they help the teacher to manage the classroom by managing their peers, by reminding their peers, their classmates that be quiet, you do your task. If you do not know, you could ask me, rather than disturbing others. If you do not know how to work on it, just approach me and teach. I could teach you or could guide you, or tell you what to do, rather than doing that vocal steaming or doing some noise because you do not know how to work on it. And that's one of the things that my older kids are doing with their peers. Another effective way is to include our students in their own behavioral change program. My older kids, I ask them to do journal. They have their journal, And they parts that's just like a diary of what they do during the day, how they engage with their families or with their siblings at home. Was there any problem that they encountered during the day? So they learn to journal it, and they learn to monitor their own behavior, and then they learn to somehow learn to it helps them to regulate their own behavior by recording it, by monitoring it, by learning how to self monitor their own behavior. It helped them ensure that the to help me assure to the accuracy of self monitoring. We occasionally collect their check their journal and see and remind them that these are the things that you did, and then it would help them a lot to improve their behaviors. And those children or students of mine who have some regulation problems before, when we started using some sort of journaling, it improved their behavior. And then when I remind them, oh, look at your journal, read it. What happened? What did you do to improve your behavior? When you were screaming, what happened? When you stopped screaming, what happened? And it helped them. And it helped them a lot. You could also help. We could also ask the parents to be part of it, because you could ask parents what do they do at home. What are the strategies that they do at home for you to integrate in your classroom to modify the child's behavior. You also ask other professionals or teachers for you to improve their behaviors, rather than just doing it alone. And if you do not have other with if you do not talk with other professionals or other teachers, you'll get burned out. And you need in psychology, we call it uh, counter transference. In our center, what we do after every learning session or every learning day, I do have time with with my teachers. I talk to them what happened, and they I ask them, we talk for them to unload or to unburden, for them to avoid burnout. Because if you're just going to do it by yourself, you'll get you lose yourself, and you're going to get frustrated and drain, or feel burnout. You'll get burnout, and you're going to give up. Kaya you need to seek help also from other professionals to help in terms of managing your classroom behavior or the behaviors of your students as well. Another thing is missing the link between instructions and behavior. This is one of the common mistakes that we commit in our classrooms. At times there is a link between our lessons to this behavior. Perhaps our lesson is too easy or difficult, ineffective or non-stimulating, which can lead to student behaviors. That is according to Center, Dilts, and Kaufman in 1982. What do we need to do is to use academic instructions as a behavior management tool. The first line of defense in managing students' behavior is effective instructions. Good teachers have always known this, and research supports this notion. According to Everson and Harris in 1992 and Jones in 1991, found that when teachers try to demystify learning, achievement and behavior promotes dramatically. It improves. Like example of how to demystify learning includes student establishing his or her learning goals, student monitoring his own learning, involving students in developing classroom rules and procedures, and relating lessons to students' our own lives and interests. When we use academic instructions as a behavior management tool, effective teaching practices include but not limited to instructions that is fast-paced, including high rates of active students responding, involving modeling new behavior, and provide guided practice and positive corrective feedback. When we use this kind of instructions as a management tool, sometimes kasi if i- if the child engages into behavioral problems, we have to check also our instructional academic instructions. We have to understand also that we might be missing some cues that lead our students into misbehavior. We need to use consistency in terms of our strategies, and that at the same time the characteristics of an some sort of effective instructions that could create highly effective learning environments. We have to make use of that. We need to use our academic instructions as our behavioral tools instead of making it negatively. Use it as a positive tool. Another one is the last one is taking students behavior too personally. Well, in special education, we don't take this kind of behavior in this particular manner, because we know that children with special needs, they do not engage into behavior to do it in a negative manner, but instead they're doing it that because of some sort of they have limited communication, so they engage into negative behavior. But when students misbehave, for many, especially in regular school or in general ed classroom, it often feels like it's a personal attack, especially if they say something wrong, if they misbehave, or they become non-compliant. And some of our students are very good at making it for us to make it feel they're doing it personal. When we take students' misbehavior personally, we tend to lose our objectivity. We look for quick management to fix it, that which is which does not work well, and we get often emotionally upset because it takes time and energy away from teaching. Because if they do not comply, if they do not listen, you as teachers, we feel that they do it intentionally, which I feel, especially in special education, they don't have any intention of doing it. But in regular school, in regular or general ed classroom, what do we need to do instead? Take students misbehavior professionally, not personally. When we take misbehaviors professionally, we view behavior management as our responsibility. As professionals, we know the importance of having a good and sound management system in place that deals with class-wide issues and individual student problems. As professionals, we have realistic expectations in terms of improvement in behavior, and we know that there are no quick fixes with lasting effects. Most importantly, as confident professionals, we ask for assistance when it is needed. Although handling misbehaviors may be more challenging than teaching academics, there are many effective strategies we could use that will make our classroom days more pleasant and less chaotic. When we are more effective, we're calmer, and we're less likely to act personally to our students' misbehavior. Although some students' misbehavior may appear to be targeted towards us, but these behaviors may be an outcome of their own wants and needs, the lack of skills, or they have some sort of emotional difficulties and frustrations. And the time and energy wasted being upset over our students' misbehavior is better spent celebrating over our students' success. As I often say to my students in graduate school, when we feel we are under attack due to our students' misbehavior, it's either we become a star, and star stands for smile or stop, take a deep breath, and relax. Or use the acronym QTIP, quit taking it personally. Because as professionals, let's be a star and use the QTIP for us to be effective teachers. And to conclude with, how one manages the classroom is the primary determinant of how well your students learn. Conversely, when students are successful and actively engaged in their work, they tend to be well behaved. Therefore, keep students involved in their work, have students understand what is expected of them, maximize time on task, prevent confusion or being distracted, and run a work stimulated but relaxed and pleasant classroom. Remember that in the adult world, the workplace is one that is not always quiet. On the contrary, people continually interact, ask questions, brainstorm, seek help, and so on. In accepting the premise that all the teachers does in the classroom contributes to the quality instructions and management, instructions and classroom management should not be viewed as separate entities. Our instruction and classroom management, they need to go hand in hand. When teachers apply their knowledge, training, communication, mastery, skills, and values, and caring, the student cooperatively become an active part of the teaching and learning process. To end, now an assertive teacher is one who clearly and firmly communicates her expectations to her student and is prepared to reinforce her words with appropriate actions. She responds to students in a manner that maximizes her potential to get her own needs to teach meet, but in no way violates the best interest of the students. Good evening po.
Thanks, ma'am, Tadanna.
Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. It was very informative for us and also for our participant. Ma'am, it's time for our quiz session. After completing the quiz session, we will come back again in our question answer session. So you have to
Okay.
wait for a few minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. তারপরে আপনাকে আপনি Dear participant, after the short video, we will start our quiz session. To join our quiz session, you have to log in www.slido.com. Then you have to enter the code IGP3. Let's enjoy our short video. After that, we will start our quiz session.
মেনশন করার কথা বলি।
We will start our quiz session after few minutes. To join our quiz session, please go www.slido.com and our code is IGP3. We will pick your name from Slido, so join with your full name, which will directly print on certificate. Top 10 will be awarded the quiz competition certificate.
And don't forget to mention your friends.
Already 34 people join with us. To join our quiz session, you have to go www.slido.com and the code is IGP3. And don't forget to mention your friend to join our quiz session. We will start our quiz session in few minutes. To join our quiz session, please go www.slido.com and our code is IGP3. We will start our quiz competition shortly, so don't forget to mention your friend to join our quiz session. Already 54 people join with us. Just now we are going to start our quiz session. Our first question of the quiz session is: one of the common classroom management mistake is assuming that the concern is not an academic issue. The option 1 is true, the option 2 is false. The right answer is option 1 true. 85% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Shuffle holding the first position, then Jordan, then Ricky. The second question of our quiz competition is: rules in the classroom should be measurable and long so a student have clear expectation. Option 2, short, created with students, positive and reviewed often. Okay. Option 2, short created with students positive and review offense is the right answer. 73% people are right here. Okay, in the leaderboard we can see Shuffle is also first position holding here. Our third question is, which strategy in classroom instruction can aid behavior management? Option 1, well planned lessons with active participants. Option 2, well planned lessons, active participants, and feedback. Okay, the right answer is well planned lesson, active participant, and feedback. 94% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Shuffle is in the position 1, then Jordan, then Flummy. Okay. Number 4 question is, effective classroom management includes option 1, establishing and sustaining any orderly environment. Option 2, increase negative behaviors. Option 1, stabilization and sustaining an orderly environment. Option 2, increase negative behaviors. The right answer is establishing and sustaining an orderly environment, and 100% people are right here. Okay, in the leaderboard, Shuffle is holding the first position, then Jordan, then Flummy. Our fifth question of the quiz session is, what are some common mistakes that lead to an out of control classroom? Select all that apply. Not building classroom relationship. Option 2, being there for each student. Option 1, not building classroom relationship. Option 2, being there for each student. Okay, the right answer is not building classroom relationship, and 88% people are right here. In the leaderboard, Jordan is in the first position. Our sixth question is, classroom management is most effective when the teacher is flexible and has minimal rules. Option 2, the teacher uses a step by step horizontal plan. The right answer is option 2, the teacher uses a step by step horizontal plan. Okay, in the leaderboard, Jordan hold the first position. We can see that. Okay, number 7 question is, in the classroom, teachers can really only control option 1, rules, regulation, routines, and reminders. Option 2, their own planning and response to the students. The right answer is option 2, their own planning and response to the students. 37% people are right there. In the leaderboard, Shuffle is holding the first position, then Charlie and Janatul Fedos. Okay, our eighth question of the quiz session is, games in the classroom management curriculum produce student engagement though competition. Option 1 true, option 2 false. Option 1 true, option 2 false. And the right answer is option 1 true. 79% people are right here. Okay. In the leaderboard, Janatul Fedos held the position first, then Zoel, then Ricky, then Shuffle, then Gillian. Number 9 question is, common mistakes in evals are error of central tendency, halo affects, prettyfolk affects, and Option 1, error of supervision independence. Option 2, error of management modification. Option 1, error of supervision indifference is the right answer. And in the leaderboard, Joel is holding the first position. Okay, our last question of this evening. What is the goal of classroom management? Option 1, order for the sake of learning. Option 2, it is not about other. The right answer is order for the sake of learning. And 98% people are right here. Okay, congratulations, Jewel. Ricky, then Shafel, then Jordan, then Charlie. They are holding first fifth position of this quiz competition.
এটাকে বন্ধ হয়ে গেছে?
Congratulations, top 10 quiz competition winner. We have all of your name which you entered during joining. We will pick and prepare certificate and will post them into our official page and group. Our official Facebook page name is Institute of Global Professional. Dear participant, now we go for our question answer session. After short video, we will start our question answer session. Once again, welcome dear participant. Participants are requested to ask their question in comment box. Please address speaker name after question answer. We will share certificate process.
কনজাংশনটা সরান,
Hmm.
কনজাংশনটা সরান।
Hmm.
না না উপরের কনজাংশনটা,
নিচেটা চলবে?
পার্টিসিপেটটা সরান।
Hello ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Hi.
Okay ma'am. Our first question is from Jordan Joy. Good day, ma'am. How process poor classroom management affect learning?
How does poor classroom management affect learning? When first thing is that if if we manage our students ineffectively, then it will affect also their learning, because learning and behavior, they go hand in hand. So we have to address their behaviors effectively for us to be able to properly address at the same time their academics. Because if we fail to manage their behavior, we'll not be able to teach them academically. It's very important we have to address their behavior first, because before academics, at times if they misbehave, it will affect their performance in terms of academics. How does anything I hope anything any follow-up question for that?
Thank you, ma'am. Our second question is from Ishaya. Uh, is given break to ADHD children an effective classroom management strategy?
Yes, all children, not only those with ADHD, it's very important. You need to give them break, especially if they are. It's okay that you allow them to fidget, you allow them to steam for 5 minutes as their reward to relax them. You could even ask them to stand from time to time, and then ask them to go back to do their work. If they're not going to give them a break, it will give them some sort of behavioral problems. If they're going to be more inattentive, if and they will started getting some sort of restlessness if not going to give them some breaks. Thank you for that question, Miss Asaya.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participant, if you have question, please ask in our comment box. We are waiting for your question. Our speaker will answer them.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is from Marian. Good day, ma'am. How do we differ the misbehave board by the pandemic from the usual misbehavior encountered in the classroom?
Okay, we really have this challenge, not only for regular teachers, but to us in special education, that misbehavior is very common because of their going back, especially face to faces. They becoming more excited. Hyperactivity triggers their excitement. They're becoming excited. They're having some sort of trouble to regulate their emotions, because it's for 2 years that they're not able to have to engage socially. They get excited, and they become hyperactive, and at the same time, it's not only their hyperactivity that triggers even some sort of, in terms of their language, in terms of their learning. They yeah they become more, sometimes they become hyperactive, and sometimes some are become less sociable. They were having some problems with their social skills, and it affects their learning as well. You should be the pandemic, the behavior that pandemic was to the students are more difficult compared to the behavior prior to the pandemic. Yeah. Anything more, ma'am?
Thank you, ma'am, for the answer.
If you have other questions, for you could make a follow-up question, because it's quite broad. How do we differ the misbehavior? Still, this still misbehavior. It's just happened that the behavior is more difficult to manage when they get back to school after the pandemic.
Dear participant, we are requested to ask if you have any question in our comment box. We are waiting for your question. Okay, ma'am, I think there is no more question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of IGP, thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very excellent session. I hope everyone learned from your presentation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now it's time for our webinar code. Uh, our Today our webinar topic is common mistake in classroom management, and our code is IGP 4077. Today our webinar topic is common mistake in classroom management, and the code is IGP 4077. Without code, no one is eligible for certificates. Without code, no one is eligible for certificates. With code, you can claim your certificate anytime. Thank you so much, everyone, for your active participation. I hope everyone learned from our webinar. See you again in our next session. Till that, stay happy. Once again, I am Badham Das from Bangladesh. Thank you, everyone.